All right, so Pittsburgh obviously beat Cincinnati week 1. We lost T.J. Watt to injury. We got back for the second game, and things don't really go our way. Final score, as of right now, there's still 45 seconds left, so I haven't watched the full end technically, but right now the score is 37-30 in favor of Cincinnati, and I'm just going to assume they're going to kneel it out, and that's going to be the end of the game. So we're going to go into this video with that assumption. Some takeaways from this game. I think Pittsburgh's chances of winning really died. I think there were 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There was that drive that we got where Cincinnati punted the ball, and we had the ball on Cincinnati's 48-yard line because our defense had done a fantastic job. And we end up, over the course of the next couple plays, getting 2 penalties back-to-back. It ends up being like a 1st and 25 after he picked up an initial first down. And we punt the ball back, and Cincinnati drives in the field and scores a touchdown. I think our chances of winning the game ended there with that play, with that drive that really should have, at the very least, been a field goal. We should have gotten points off of that. We were starting in Cincinnati territory thanks to our defense, thanks to a poor punt, and instead we had to punt the ball right back. I think that really killed all the momentum we had. You could even hear the fans in the stadium booing after that drive. And frankly, I don't blame them because it was pretty awful to end up with a situation like that. To basically end up almost going backwards. I think our chances really died there. And granted, we could have still won in the end. And we had a chance to recover an onside kick that would have given us at least a couple of plays to maybe force overtime, maybe get a touchdown, maybe even go for 2 points and win the game outright. But instead, we don't get the onside kick, which apparently we haven't done in over 200-something games. And we end up losing 30-37. I did like some of the stuff I saw from Kenny Pickett. The first half I thought was better than the second half, though he did come alive towards the very end. We get that final touchdown drive to make it a 1-score game, which really we could have scored on twice in that drive. George Pickens dropped an easy touchdown a little bit earlier. I still see a lot of issues with Pickett. His accuracy, there are some throws he makes that just do not even come close to being catchable passes. I think that's a bit of a concern. His pocket awareness is still a bit of an issue. I think his pocket presence too, because he avoids the pocket way too often, way too easily sometimes. He has to learn to stand in the pocket and kind of play within more of a structure than he does currently. So there's still some concerns there with Pickett, but overall it wasn't a bad game from him. I think play calling wise, there were some good moments from Matt Canada, but overall probably a negative game for Canada in general, which isn't surprising at this point. Najee Harris, 4.5 yards per carry. Another decent run, was 19 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. A good game for him, considering how the year started. People were really starting to turn on him. And he's kind of turned on the past couple of weeks and been a much better performer for Pittsburgh. Pat Freiermuth from Pickens, once again, I feel like I mention these guys almost every week as being the top performers as pass catchers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pickens, 4 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. Obviously had that drop touchdown as well. That could have made it even a more impressive performance for him. And Freiermuth, 8 catches for 79 yards. He's just been the go-to guy. He really has been that security blanket that you always picture as the prototypical tight end. He's been that dude for Pittsburgh this season. And for Pickett, someone who really needs to develop, but really probably isn't necessarily ready to be a starting NFL quarterback, having Freiermuth is a blessing for him. Unfortunately, DeAnthony Johnson, just 4 catches for 21 yards. I think this is going to be a huge issue in Pittsburgh going forward. Because Diontae Johnson, not only we're paying him a lot of money, we're not really using him enough. But I also saw, there was a chart last week that I saw. That chart, I think it was catchable pass percentage on the y-axis. On the x-axis, it was like separation created, or percentage of snaps where you were open, essentially. We created a ton of separation. And Diontae Johnson was in the top 5 for separation created among all the top receivers in the NFL. Diontae Johnson was among the top 5 in separation yards created. So essentially, he's open. He's open a lot of the time. And he's not getting the ball almost at all. And that's on Kenny Pickett, really. That's a bit on play calling as well. So play calling and on Kenny Pickett. And we have to get Diontae Johnson the ball more often because he has been open. It is statistically proven he has been wide open, and we have not been throwing him the football. So that's an issue we have to address going forward because he needs to get more involved in this offense, especially considering what we're paying him. And because he is a good player, he is open. So we need to make sure we take a better chance, do a better job of actually using what he's giving us. Defensively, I really like what I saw from the defense, especially in the second half. The first half kind of hit touch and go. The second half felt really good about them again until that final touchdown drive for the Bengals where they kind of went down the whole field. Things started falling apart. Obviously, the secondary had some bad play. It's just kind of how it's going to be. Levi Wallace is never going to be Joe Hayden. Our corners are never going to be what they were even 2 years ago when we had Hayden and Nelson. They're not going to be those kind of guys. We're not going to have a very good secondary this year. And we're not going to have a good secondary until we replace both of our starting corners. So, in general, kind of played with an expectation, honestly. I wouldn't say held Burrow, but we did pick off Burrow twice. And we have, six interceptions on Burrow now this year, I think. Which is pretty epic when you consider how Burrow's a really good quarterback. He's played horribly against Pittsburgh both times, but he's been a really good quarterback for the rest of the season. Yeah, we had 6 interceptions. He got thrown 8 interceptions this year. 8 interceptions this entire season. And 6 of them are to Pittsburgh. So, he's played really well against every opponent except Pittsburgh. Even today, one of them, the interception by T.J. Watt, there's not really much you can do about that. I mean, just an epic play by T.J. Watt. I'm glad to have him back, by the way. But yeah, our secondary it's just not very good, and we kind of knew that going into the season that it wasn't going to be good. Levi Wallace was going to be one of our better corners, and the Buffalo Bills have been trying to get rid of him for ages. So we should have expected the secondary to be beat up, and I did to some extent, but maybe not this poorly at this point in the season. Good job by our guys getting their hands up the line of scrimmage. There were 2 or 3 passes bad down the line. Obviously, T.J. Watt had the interception. Watt had half a sack today. Cam Heyward had a sack today, along with a couple of quarterback hits and 7 tackles. Heyward popped a lot today. This was the most life I saw from Cameron Heyward in a while, and I'm glad to see he's kind of rounding back into form over the past 3 or 4 weeks or so. He's really gotten back to being the All-Pro, because he was not very impactful at the beginning of the year, it felt like, but now he's kind of coming back into it, and he's playing a lot better, and he's popping off the screen a lot more at this point. So for the defensive mix back, I thought the defensive line played really well. Let me put it that way. Defensive line played really well. The secondary played it's about what you would expect from it for a team for a secondary that's not very talented, especially at the cornerback level. Outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick, there's no one really back there you feel very comfortable with. Trey Edmonds is a solid player. He's growing to being a solid safety in the NFL. But from a cornerback perspective, I mean, even Cameron Sutton, it's not a cornerback room you feel comfortable with at all. So, not too shocking how it turned out in terms of us struggling to stop the passing game. I mean, even no Jamar Chase, and it didn't really matter. T. Higgins, 9 catches for 148 yards. I had to see him play at Clemson. T. Higgins is a really good player, and he would generally be a wide receiver 1 on a couple of teams in the NFL. So, there's that to consider. But still, you would have liked to think that without Jamar Chase in the picture, we could have at least focused on T. Higgins and kind of shut him down a little bit, and couldn't even do that. But yeah, I don't think there's too much more to talk about for this game. The offensive line, I guess we can mention, the offensive line didn't play particularly great, but we've known that. I mean, the tackles are not very good. Core 4 has gotten better almost every year. Dan Moore needs to be replaced. I've been on this train since we picked him. He's not going to be a starter in the NFL at any point, or he's not going to be an average NFL starter at any point in his career. We need to find a new starting left tackle. Core 4 has gotten better every year, and he's solid now, but I still don't feel necessarily very comfortable with him out there. I don't know that ever will. And yeah, the offensive line probably needs 2 or 3 new starters over the next 2 years, I would imagine. So that's something we have to address in the offseason via free agency, via the draft. We have to figure it out. Hopefully, actually, via free agency, because I'm kind of sick of us drafting linemen because they don't develop as quickly as we need them to. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, I'm going to end this here. Pittsburgh falls to 3-7. At this point, no playoff chances for us. I'm just focusing on who we could be picking in draft season.